Okay, well, hello everyone. Today I have a little bit of a different video. I have a how-to video and hope that this is helpful for you. I've had a couple of comments on my YouTube channel about people wondering how to set up the radio on Heli-X. So just wanted to give a few pointers about that. So first thing that we want to do is to make sure that your radio is configured so that Windows can see it correctly. So you want to go to search for USB, okay? And select these setup USB game controllers, which should bring up your radio. If this does not appear, then you don't have it plugged in correctly, your USB is not working correctly, your wireless connector is not working correctly. So if you don't see this here, then that's the first issue that you need to solve. Once you see your controller here, I'm using the vControl Classic connected via USB. And before I used the Spectrum radio with an RX2 SIM, but it's the same thing, should appear here. If it appears, then you can just go to Properties, and in Properties you should be able to see how everything moves. So in here, the rudder, the collective, in here the elevator, the aileron, and all your buttons, which right now are doing things on Heli-X, but I just wanted to, kind of like let you see what, how it works, right? So that's as far as the Windows configuration. If this is not working properly, if you move these and doesn't move or move too little or something, then you can go to settings and calibrate and run the calibration. It'll ask you step by step what to do. You have to move the sticks all the way and then center them, and it'll tell you what to do so that your radio is correctly calibrated. So now that everything works, you can go actually into Heli-X. After you go into Heli-X, then you have to configure your controller into Heli-X and select the proper, and this to me has been a trial and error. I think that when Heli-X first starts or detects a radio, it'll ask you for an automatic calibration to try to select these. But if not, or if you're doing it afterwards or whatever, I mean, it's kind of like a little bit of trial and error, selecting the proper channel and just moving and making sure that this is the function that you want, and whether you want it inverted or not. So positive collective, negative collective, right? Left rudder, right rudder. As you can see, I have it inverted because this for me is left rudder and right rudder, right? Then elevator and aileron. Okay. So once that works, you should be able to fly the helicopter. Now what I'm going to do first is that I'm going to remove the configuration from here so that you can see how I do it, okay, and what's the effect, okay? So right now, what will happen, it'll go into idle up 3 automatically, okay? And actually I think that the keyboard buttons will work. So 1, 2, and 3, okay? So what I'm doing is that I'm using the keyboard because that's what Heli-X defaults to. It defaults to 1, 2, and 3 on your keyboard to change between the different flight modes, okay? But I cannot do anything with my radio. If I move the switches on my radio, nothing happens, okay? So let's land in full power, and then let's go to the controller configuration. Okay, now that we're in the controller configuration, we will configure then our functions. So in here we can go to buttons, and this is the I think that the new screen that Heli-X presented a couple of versions ago. It's much better, but it takes a little bit of getting used to. So first, what I'll do is that I'll move the switch that I want, and you see that it appeared. I didn't have anything there, so now it appeared. That's the switch that I want to use for for turning on and off the engine. So what I'll use in here is the auto rotation preset. So the auto rotation preset right now, and you'll see it, I'll show it a little bit later in the video, has a 0% throttle. It's not really an engine on or off. It's using the auto rotation preset. So if you're practicing auto rotation, you can actually set up, like, put a little bit of head speed there so that you don't completely bleed out of head speed. This is a common practice that people do also on the real life helicopters. But for the purpose of these, we will only use it for the turning on and off the engine. So if you can see, if I move this switch, well, I moved it, it's a 3-position switch. So the third position actually, because there's just two positions. So for example, this is a 3-position switch. Positions 2 and 3 give a minus 100 and a plus 100, okay? But if I go to the third position is actually 100 on channel 0. So what we really want is to use channel 1, okay? So what I want is when this switch is on position minus 100, then that's when I want to enable the auto rotation, which is basically turn off the engine. Okay? So if you see this little red mark, what you want is to match this range with that mark. So if for a different radio, this is not minus 100, but different values, then you have to move these sliders so that the little red mark is aligned. And that's when this particular row of command will run. So for example, if I want here, I want the auto rotation. Okay, so when it is at minus 100, I want the auto rotation to be enabled. So what I'll do is that I'll push it all the way back here, and it really doesn't matter where I put it, but you know, I've kind of settled to put it at like 50. So minus 100 and minus 50, between that range, I will enable the auto rotation. If my value goes out of that range, which means I go to 100, then you see it's no longer on auto rotation. So let's see the effect. So now, if I move my switch to that position, then it'll enable the auto rotation preset, which turns off the engine. If I move it to the other way, then it no longer is on that auto rotation preset, and it turns on the engine, okay? But I still don't have different head speeds. So let's fix that. So we'll go again to configuration controller, to buttons, and now, you know, select the switch that you want to use for your different idle ups. So for me, I want this 3-position switch, okay? Which again, 2 of the 3 positions change between minus 100 and 100, and the other position goes to 100, okay? That's how the V-control interaction works. It could be different for your radio, but it's the same concept. So what I want is first, you know, what I personally like is that in the farmost position, because then I can slide my finger in, because I use the top right front switch, which is a 3-position switch on the V-control, and then the long switch on the back for auto rotation or for turning on and off the engine. So I want that, you know, towards the back, you know, the back switch I want it towards the back, and the front switch I want it towards the front when I'm normally flying. I normally fly on idle up 3. So that's what I want to do. So when I'm on the first position, which means 100% on channel 3, what I want is idle up 3. Okay, so I select idle up 3, it goes up here, and this is where I want, okay? So again, we'll do 50 to 100. So when this channel 3 is at 100, it'll enable idle up 2. Then the next one, and this is something that I found, you know, when you change from channel 3 to channel 2, it still kind of remembers that you were on channel 2, so be careful with that. So just move your switches again, and now it'll switch to 2. Or what you can do also is you switch to channel 2. Okay? So channel 2 on this position, which is minus 100, I want idle up 2. Okay? So again, between 50 and 100, which doesn't really matter because it's at the very end. Okay, I could put them, you know, squeezed right in here, but that, you know, that's how I like it. Okay, so idle up 2 will be whenever it hits here, and idle up 3, which is 100, we can use for the same switch. You can have up to 4 positions on a single switch. So for the second position of this same switch, then we'll select another row, and that row will be idle up 1. Okay, and idle up 1 is 100, so 100 to 50. Okay, so whenever my switch is at 100%, which means that this little red mark is here, it falls in between these, so that's idle up 1. If I move it here, which is my second position, it gives me a minus 100. It's out of idle up 1, but it's in idle up 2, okay? And my last switch position, which actually jumps to a different channel, it's 100 and 100 idle up 3, okay? So let's see if that works. Oh, so in here, the default for Heli-X is to assign idle up 1, 2, and 3 to the keyboard. You cannot have both the keyboard and a switch enabled. So what we need to do is go here to keyboard, select, as you can see, it has key 1, 2, and 3 for these 3, which is in direct conflict with what we have configured. So select it and hit the delete key on your keyboard to get rid of that setup. Okay? So now the keyboard is no longer assigned to these functions, only the radio. So let's test it out. So first, we need to turn on the engine. Okay? Then we'll go to idle up 2 and idle up 1. So this is low head speed, medium head speed, and high head speed. Okay? So that's how you configure these. High head speed is a little bit too high, a little bit too noisy. And how do you configure that? How do you configure which speed you want on each setup? Well, in here you go into configuration and flight mode. And in here, remember that auto rotation, as I said, was a preset. It's not really turning on. I'm not really turning on and off the engine. I'm really enabling the auto rotation preset, which the auto rotation preset has a throttle of 0, effectively killing the engine. But in here you could put it at a little bit if you're actually practicing auto rotation, so that you give it a little bit of head speed when you switch the auto rotation. Idle up 3 is at 100% throttle, 2400 head speed. Idle up 2 is 30% throttle or 1560 head speed, and idle up 1 is 10% throttle or 1320 head speed. Okay, so that's basically how this works. Actually, this head speed is a little bit too crazy. Should be around 2100 probably, which is what I have for real. So let's change it to 2100, okay, which is 75% throttle. Okay. So now my idle up 3 shouldn't sound as crazy. A little bit. A little bit. But I think that's good. I think that's actually where I would like it. Does feel fast, but I think it's good. I think it does correlate to what I feel in real life, and that's part of what you have to do. Play around with some values to make sure that you have a similar feel to reality, so that your muscle memory actually translates properly. Okie dokie. So I think that's what I wanted to show to you today, how this works, and hopefully it's helpful for you. Hopefully I didn't confuse you more. I hope that it was clear how I explained how this works. Any questions, for sure, let me know. I always try to answer any comments on my channel. So anything, just comment. And hopefully you subscribe and keep watching this channel. I changed the content a little bit between real life flying, sim flying, and some how-tos. But everything, if there's some questions or comments, I for sure try to do something about them. So this video is long overdue, but thank you very much if you stayed with me so far. Keep watching and have a nice day.